Hello, and thank you for tuning in to my video. My name is Anthony D'Ambrosio, and I live in the Houston, Texas area. And the reason for this video is to show you how solar can be a benefit to you in the case of a severe power outage or a severe event such as a storm that just recently went through Texas. Multiple people without heat and power for an extended period of time. I was fortunate enough to have Tesla solar and Tesla Powerwalls in my home. So this prevented me from being without power and heat, but unfortunately most of my neighbors, if not all of my neighbors except for a few, didn't have power. Multiple friends have broken water lines, and some are still without power and water due to the current situation. So what I want to do is just kind of walk through exactly how solar can help you and what the true cost of solar is, and how to really look at solar if you're looking to install it in your home. Some of you may have already looked at solar and got a sales pitch and a quote, but didn't see the value. And most likely is because the salesperson wasn't able to translate what that value is and how solar can really help you in your home in multiple different ways. So there's going to be a financial cost and savings to having solar. And there's also going to be like an insurance benefit of having solar and Tesla Powerwalls. Now, what you see here right now is my Tesla app. And it's showing that my Tesla Powerwalls, I have two of them, are 100% charged as of today. Now, what's great about the Tesla app is it's able to show you very granular details on your usage and consumption. So if I go over to the power flow, what I can see at this current moment is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's now February 20th, 2021. I'm generating 6.6 kilowatts of energy. I'm sending 6.4 kilowatts back to the grid for other people to consume, and I'm only using 0.2 kilowatts to power my home. Now, at the current moment, I just have a few things on in my home. I have the light on that I'm using in my garage. I have some essential appliances. I have, like microwave, clocks, router, cable modem, and some other things such as TVs and stuff plugged in. So I'm barely pulling any electricity. Now, during the power outage, I was able to run the heat in my home, and the increase in electricity usage was very minimal. I went to about 0.5 to 0.7 kilowatt hours. Now, due to the fact that I have two power walls, I was able to conserve energy a little bit further to keep that under 0.5 because I do have two refrigerators. So I did unplug one of my refrigerators, and I also provided electricity to two of my neighbors during the power outage. And what I'm also going to show you today is what the energy consumption is compared to turning on a HVAC system that uses gas to generate heat but electricity to run the blowers versus some small space heaters, and the dramatic difference between the energy consumption. For the first day, my neighbors didn't have their generator running, so I was able to give them a little bit of power and a little bit of heat with their small space heaters, plus, allow them to put their TVs on, charge their phones, and turn on a few lamps in the evening into the morning. Okay? So what you see here is the power flow. So let's look over at my power usage. Now, it's already 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you can see that the whole day I've only used about 8.3 kilowatt hours of my home. Now, if I switch over to solar, you can see that solar generation is really high. And if I uncheck my house, I can see already today I've generated 52.6 kilowatt hours based on the system that I installed in my home today. Okay. The gray line and gray information is how much energy I've taken from the grid and how much I've sent back into the grid. So you'll see I don't have any grid usage. What you'll also notice here is there's a gray section of this chart. I was fortunate enough through my energy provider to get solar buyback or net metering in addition to free nights. So my use case might be a little bit different from your use case. So if you're installing solar, you need to see what the value is, what the cost savings are, and what type of insurance it offers you. I'm kind of going to walk through all these different components in this presentation today. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back a few days, and I'm going to highlight each of the sections. So green is battery. So that's either I'm charging the battery if it's negative, and if it's above the line, I'm using it. Yellow is I'm generating solar. Gray is I'm using grid or sending electricity to the grid. And then the blue is the actual consumption of my home. And on each day, I'm able to see my full consumption. So I can see already that today I've only used 8.3. I've generated 52.6. I put 2.9 kilowatt hours back into my Powerwall. I used 7.1, and that 7.1 was during the evening. So I use between 7 and 10 kilowatt hours during the off-peak or when the sun is not generating during the nighttime. At this particular day, there's other times it's even less because, if the sun runs until 8, 9 o'clock, I'm generating energy all the way up into those extended hours, especially during the summer and the late summer, early fall. Okay. I can see how much I've actually used from the grid. So through the transition, sometimes maybe I'll use 1 kilowatt hour for the whole day from the grid, or I might have used that during the off-peak time as well, and I'll be able to show the difference. I sent back 41 kilowatt hours to the grid because I used a portion to power my home. Now what I can do is I can simply go over here and click peak, and then I can see what the peak time was, and I can see what the off-peak time was. Okay. So you'll see during the peak time, when I'm normally paying for electricity, I use 0. During the off-peak time, I use 0.9, and then the rest I use 2.8 from the Powerwall. Okay. Now let's run to an earlier date. So I'm going to go back to when this whole thing started. Okay. If you look, depending on the time of day, the weather, if it's raining, snowing, hail, sleet, I'm generating different amounts of electricity and I'm consuming different amounts. Now, if you look, my usage is basically under 2.3 kilowatt hours. So you can see my highest usage was around noon, where I used about 2.3. If I go down to my energy sources, you can see how much I got from solar, how much I got from the Powerwall, and how much I got from the grid and percentage-wise. And then as I click each one, it starts to give me more data points. So on February 11th, this was my usage. Okay. Now, if I want to fast forward, you'll see that at a certain point, I got nothing from the grid. So I'm just going to go to the grid and show you. Okay. Now we get to February 15th. I have no power. I go to February 16th. The power came back on for a short period of time, and then the power went out again. What you'll notice is a spike during my peak time. So Tesla actually offers what's called a storm watch mode. So when the power came on, it prioritized recharging my battery. It took about 5 minutes, and I was charged up again. Okay. And then I'm able to kind of look through the days. So each of these major spikes is showing that my battery is recharging whenever the power came back on, but it was also recharging through solar. But during the 17th, I got very little solar. But again, I use about maybe 10 to 20% of my battery storage in the evenings. Most of the time, it's less. I'm about 8%. So if I kind of highlight all the metrics, what you can see here is that I'm generating electricity as a baseline. Okay, and if I undo the grid, you can see that my generation covered a majority of my usage for the 17th, and then the Powerwall filled in for the difference, the stored energy. The 16th, you can see the same. I generated a lot of electricity, powered my home, and I was able to even recharge my battery and then continue to move forward all the way up into the evening. Come back, again, you can see the usage versus the generation and leveraging stored energy. Now, what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to go back to my backup history to kind of show you the amount of time I was without power from the grid. On February 15th, you'll see that for 32 hours and 17 minutes, I had no grid energy. Then on the 16th, I lost it for about a little over 5 hours and change. February 17th, almost 8.5 hours, and then on February 17th for about an hour and a half. I had no loss of heat, no loss of power. I was able to run my refrigerators the whole time. The only time I unplugged it was on the first day when I was sharing some electricity to kind of conserve power to help power my neighbors' homes, because they were using energy intensive space heaters. And I'm actually going to show you that right now. So if I jump over to my camera and I show you, these are the two space heaters that my neighbors were running. One is from one neighbor and one is from the other. So I have this really little tiny, Sunbeam space heater, and then I have this other Lasco space heater. And both of them are off at the current moment. So if I go back to my Tesla app and I go to my power flow, you'll see I'm barely using any electricity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this really tiny little Sunbeam one, and I'm going to turn this on and watch the energy consumption dramatically jump up. Now you can see I was barely using any electricity. Just to run this tiny little space heater, it's using about 1.2 kilowatt hours. Okay? I'm going to show up this Sunbeam one, and I'm going to turn on this Lasco one. And I left everything on high, and I'm going to turn everything on high again here. And what you're going to notice, it's going to drop, and then it's going to go right back up. Okay, I'm using about 1.8. I think it went up to as much as 2.2. We'll just give it a moment. And you'll notice it's increasing. So I'm using about 2 kilowatt hours. Now, if I turn both on, mind you, these are two very tiny little space heaters, but something was better than nothing when it was 17 degrees Fahrenheit here in Houston, Texas, and you're looking for any kind of heat source as possible. Okay? And you're going to notice it's going to jump up dramatically. Okay? Now, there's a huge difference between my energy consumption when I was running my HVAC. My HVAC system is using gas to generate heat, but it obviously is using electric to run the blowers. Okay? And I can show you that as well. So I'm going to shut these off. And you're going to see my power consumption drop dramatically. Okay. All right, so they're both turned off. And you're going to see my power consumption drop back down to what it was before. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my ecobee thermostat. And what you'll notice is that my heat is not on at the current moment. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and turn my heat on to force my home to kick on the heat. And I'll just bring these up. Okay. Now I have two zones in my home, but I have a single HVAC system. So I'm just going to give it a moment for my system to kick in. Okay. And you'll notice the power consumption is starting to increase. Okay, let's go back and see. Now the heat has just kicked on in one of the zones, and eventually it'll kick on in the other zone in a moment. I'm using about 0.6 to 0.7. Now, mind you, at the current moment, I have two refrigerators running. Again, I have my cable modem, my router, some other basic appliances plugged in addition to some lights on right now. And I've only increased my consumption by half a kilowatt at most compared to a base level. So the refrigerators use very little. They use about 2.2 kilowatt hours for everything in the house, including the refrigerators. I use about 0.5 to run my heat. Now, if I had another power outage, I would want to try and be as conservative as possible, but I don't really need to. My system is sufficient enough to run my heat and my core essential appliances in an extended blackout. I don't have to worry about my pipes bursting. Hopefully, they don't. Or I don't have to worry about my home being without heat. Now, I was very fortunate that this worked because I have a 6-month-old kid, and we were really concerned about having extremely cold temperatures in the home. A lot of my neighbors' homes were in the 46 to 52 degree range. Once their power went out, some had fireplaces, so they were able to heat their living room. Some had nothing, so they were pretty much in the cold. Okay, see, 0.5 is running, so it uses less than 0.5, and you can see that now my heat is running. Okay. I'm going to cancel this. And I'm going to cancel this. And now you're going to see my electricity usage drop back down. Now I'm going to jump back over to my camera and show you I have my two Tesla Powerwalls storing energy in my home. Now let's talk about the numbers and how to look at solar. Now you can look at any provider. I do recommend that you go and get estimates from multiple providers to kind of get an idea of what the cost would be, see if there's any price matching opportunities. If you choose to go the Tesla route, you'll see in the description below the video the option to use my referral link. I do get a little credit for you using my referral link, but you also get something back as well if you decide to purchase a Tesla system. I'm not telling you have to. I recommend to get multiple quotes. What you will find is if you do go with other providers, they are still using Tesla Powerwalls if they offer battery backup in your home and they're putting panels on your roof. Now, one of the key things to keep in mind is not all systems are the same. The number of panels, the output that you can get from each of the panels does differ. So when you get the estimates, they're not all the same. So for instance, you may get a different range. One may recommend that you install a 12 kilowatt system with 2 Powerwalls. One may recommend a 7 kilowatt system with no Powerwalls or 2 Powerwalls. You really need to separate the estimate into 2 different estimates. First is you have to just do the solar itself. If you do the battery backup, that would be equivalent to putting a gas generator or on your home in case of a power outage. Now let's talk about the difference. Okay? If you said I just wanted to put a generator on my home, there's no cost savings. Most home generators, like a whole house backup, can cost you 10, 15 grand. Maybe you'll find something less expensive for $7,000. It all depends on your consumption. The number of appliances, HVAC systems that you have in your home will determine the type of gas generator you would install in your home. So you probably would want to get a quote to understand what the cost would be to put a generator. You will find some people that will say, oh, a generator is only $5,000, or I can get a portable generator, a gas generator. But at the end of the day, someone has to run a gas line to your generator, unless you're using like gas that you would use for your car to run the generator. They're noisy. They require maintenance every year. You have to winterize them when you're not using it. And if you haven't had a power outage in 3 or 4 years and you haven't maintained your generator, well, good luck, because your generator might not turn on because you probably didn't do if you haven't done the proper maintenance. So there are pros and cons to using a generator. But again, the generator is only if your power goes out. It provides no cost savings. It has an additional cost to your system. Okay? So if your electric bill, say hypothetically, is $100 a month, and then you add a generator to it, and even if you pay $25, $35, $45 per month for whatever the term of your loan is, or unless you buy it outright, it increases the cost for you to get power. And then when your power goes out, you still have to pay for the fuel source to power that generator, whether it be natural gas or actually gasoline. So there is an added cost. Now, if there's no power in the area and you didn't have a gas can for gasoline in your garage, you didn't have any handy, and the gas station has no power, good luck trying to get gasoline to power up your portable generator when you have no gasoline. So that's another thing you have to take into mind. Now, one of the other things that happened out here in Houston, there was an increase in natural gas usage. So multiple friends were having issues with getting enough gas in their homes to even run their fireplaces, for those that had gas fireplaces. Some of their hot water heaters and other things were not getting the gas that was required to even provide the services that they needed. So you have to take that into consideration as well when you put a gas generator on your home. The more gas generators there are, natural gas generators there are, the higher the demand switches from when the power goes out. What's great about solar is it's actually replacing your current energy costs. So if you have a $100 or a $200 average electric bill over the course of over the course of 12 months, you would have to factor it in to the cost of your solar system. And I'm going to go through that in a few moments on an Excel spreadsheet to kind of show you how the math works. And I'm also going to show you my total power flow for the year. So I've had the system since about October 2019. I didn't really start using it or wasn't able to really turn it on until November, because after the system was installed, I had to wait for approval to turn on my system. So from November 2019 to February 2021, I had the system for about 1 year and 4 months. So over the lifetime of my system, I'm able to see how much energy I generated, how much energy I sent back to the grid, and so on. So it's going to take a moment to render that information from the system. Okay. So if you look at it, you can see 2019, very little energy generation. 2020, a lot of energy generation. And 2021, I'm only 2 months in, I can see my bar graph here. Now, what I'm going to simply do is I'm just going to scroll down here and look at the lifetime energy consumption. Okay. Now, if you look, my home usage over the past 16 months has been just about 15,500 kilowatt hours. However, my system has generated 20,451 kilowatt hours. My Powerwall has supplied about 3,400 of the energy requirements to my home during whether it be blackouts or since I have a time of use plan, if I wasn't generating energy during the peak time, it was filling in that space so that I didn't have to pay for electricity during the peak time. What you'll also notice is that from the grid, I've consumed 7,800 kilowatt hours. And what I'm doing is during the off-peak time, I'm actually using grid electricity, but during the peak time, I'm sending electricity back to the grid. So you'll see here that I've sent 12,000 kilowatt hours back to the grid, far more than I've consumed. So in my opinion, I'm still being green because I'm not consuming as much from the grid as I'm actually contributing to it. So depending on your stance and how you would want to power your home, you choose the electrical plan that works best for you. So I chose a company called Amigo Energy out here in Houston, Texas. Their peak time charges about 20 cents per kilowatt hour, but since I'm not using really any electricity during the peak time, I technically have a $0 bill. I actually generate enough electricity to even cover the baseline connection charge, which I think is about $4.95 per month, and I still get money back from the electricity company. They only give me about 3 cents per kilowatt hour, so it's not a lot. I get actually a credit every month for about $25, more or less average. Sometimes it's 18, sometimes it's 30, but average about $25 per month. If I do that over the course of 12 months, it actually generates enough electricity and energy credits to actually cover 1 month of my solar payment. Now, I chose to do my solar installation back in 2019 when the credit was 30%. Now it's, I think, 26% or 22%. You have to double check. But I only was eligible for the federal tax credit. Depending on the state and location that you're in, there might be other incentives and tax credits for installing solar. For instance, in some states, you might be able to get a credit from your electricity company. Maybe it's $1,000 or $1,500 or even $500, whatever that credit is. And you also may have state incentives, which give you an additional tax credit, which helps offset the cost of your solar installation. Now, one of the other ways you can look at installing solar versus a generator, when you're installing a generator, you're installing it for really insurance, right? If the power goes out, the generator comes on and provides power to your home. It's ensuring that you're going to have power during a power outage. Solar provides the same functionality, except it's helping you decrease your monthly expense. So for every dollar you pay towards your solar system, offsets the cost that you have to pay the electrical company for the consumption of energy, right? It actually offsets it. The generator does not. It adds to it. It's a completely different outlook. Plus, a generator requires maintenance and so on. A solar system can last you 20, 30 years, easy. A generator may only last you 10 years, 15 years, depending on the type of generator you buy and how well you maintain it. So during the life of my solar system versus the life of your generator, you may replace your generator 2 or 3 times. So if you're paying $10,000 to $15,000 over the course of a 15 to 30 year time for a whole house backup generator that's been hooked up to natural gas, you may spend $30,000 over 30 years. I may install a solar system, and the particular system I installed cost me about $54,000 before the tax credit. I was eligible for about a $16,000 and change tax credit, which brought my cost down to about $38,000. My monthly payment is $231 a month. My typical electric bill was about $180 per month with fees, taxes, connection charges, average across each month. So with the solar system, I'm paying about $50 more than I was paying for my electric bill. But also, I got $25 average per month back from the electricity company. So that really only brought my cost up about $25 per month, maybe $300 per year additional. But you have to keep in mind is that I'm getting back a credit. Now let's do some very simple numbers just to kind of talk about how that works. If you installed a $40,000 system of solar with 2 Powerwalls, you would get back roughly, say, $10,000 hypothetically, right? If you do, say, 25% tax credit, which is just below 26, so you get back $10,000. If I took that $10,000 and I didn't spend it to go buy a new car, go on vacation, and I just put it in the bank, if I divide $10,000 by 20 years, because I chose a 20-year loan on my solar system, that comes out to about $41 to $42 per month that $10,000 would be allocated monthly. Now remember, my electric bill is about $180, and I get back $25 in my situation. Yours may differ. Maybe you'll get more. Maybe you'll get less from the electric company. Maybe you won't get anything. So you have to weigh out the numbers for yourself. So if I add 180 plus say to $40, that's $220. That's $10 shy of my solar payment. If I throw in the money I get back from the electric company, I'm actually $15 ahead on a monthly basis compared to where I was before. Now let's take it another step further. Remember when I said you put the generator in, you're basically ensuring that you have power? Well, the solar does the same thing. So hypothetically, if you had to pay $10 more per month, you're basically purchasing insurance for your home to guarantee that you have electricity. Think about it. If it's 17 degrees out and your home is 40 degrees or 42 degrees because it's freezing and you have no power, you can't generate heat, I'm pretty sure you paying $10 more per month is not a lot of money. We insure plenty of things throughout our life. People buy life insurance in case you pass away to leave money behind for your next of kin to maybe cover expenses or leave them with money to move forward in their life. You buy health insurance in case you get sick. But if you don't get sick, you don't utilize the insurance. The same thing is if your power never goes out and you paid a little bit more, say $10 per month, $120 per year, you paid $120 extra in this instance for the peace of mind that if your power does go out, you don't have to worry about being in the cold or even being caught in extreme heat, because Houston gets hot as hell over here. And I could tell you when it's over 100 degrees and you have no power, you bake inside your home. Now, like I said, you can compare it to insurance. Whether you use the insurance or not, that's a completely different question. Now, some people never have to use their insurance, right? You may have had a car. You buy car insurance. Maybe you haven't had an accident for 15 years. But that one time you have an accident and it's devastating, you're happy that you had insurance. So some of us may pay $100, $200 per month to insure our car. We get no value out of it. But you get the peace of mind of having insurance that if something happens catastrophic, you're insured from liability and possibly get your car repaired or replaced depending on the type of insurance that you have. That's one of the ways to look at solar. I haven't met a salesperson that has presented solar in that manner. They always just talk about, here's the cost of the system, here's your savings, or here's what you may pay a little bit more than what you're currently paying. But there's so many ways to look at solar compared to a generator or having nothing at all. Okay, so if you have any comments, feel free to put them at the bottom of the video. I'd be more than happy to do some follow-up videos after this presentation to kind of fill in the gaps for anything I didn't cover during this video. I'm going to move over to presenting in an Excel worksheet how much solar costs, how to evaluate your particular instance, how to do the calculations different from the solar providers. All right, so let's look at how the numbers work for me. So based on the video, earlier in the video, I showed you what my lifetime usage and generation has been. So I've consumed about 15,500 kilowatt hours during the lifetime of my system, which is about 14 months. My generation was 20,450. My grid consumption for pretty much, I would say 99% of this was off-peak usage with a little bit during peak usage. And generation back to the grid was about 12,104 kilowatt hours. Okay. Now, the way that works out is about 50% of my usage overall, or my consumption is about 50%. Now, the current rates, or the average rate over the 12-month span for me was about 14.9 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, for you, you need to determine what that is. Maybe you pay less, maybe you pay more. So again, you have to work out the numbers and see how they apply to you. So I just basically multiplied out my total home usage, 15,521, by 14.9 cents per kilowatt hour. Sometimes I was paying less on the high usage months. Most of the plans out here that I was looking at, if I used under 1,000 kilowatts, I paid 15.9 cents per kilowatt or higher.